Eldritch gods, also known as corrupt deities, possess indescribable and unfathomable powers. They are the apex predator race who disrupts humanity's progression as they recklessly incite the flames of war. Considered the world's most powerful terroristic horror, just touching them will send a human spiraling into an endless psychotic abyss. Currently, at the Shrine of Reality, Lin, the one who gazes at the abyss, looks contemplatively at his book, which contains information on how to summon eldritch gods. As one of the otherworldly travelers who arrived millions of years ago, he once journeyed the world to produce miracles. Eventually, he mastered the supreme law of this world and became omniscient. Still, Lin is downcast as he gazes at the graveyard before him, not understanding why only he has an immortal life. To correct the chaos caused by the Eldritch, the lingering willpower of this world's creator periodically summons transmigrators from Earth. Among them is Lin and his group, who become slayers of the Eldritch. But 60 years later, the others became old, wishing to return home, while he remained youthful. As time went by, he established the Shrine of Reality, where he buries transmigrators of all generations who've died in that other world. At the moment, he states he's finally had enough. Using a key, he utters a chant, which summons the Queen of the Infinite Void, causing a vortex of power to appear in the sky, while bloody red tentacles sprout up from around him. He continues to address the being as the unspeakable Mother Goddess, who's bred countless sons, before he calls her name St. Nichols. A moment later, a demonic gate with a serpentine eye appears before Lin, asking him what he desires. Taking out something from his pocket, he tells the being he has one wish, and suddenly, with a ring in his hand, he asks the being to marry him. The Eldritch god is stunned, blushing, as she conveys her confusion to him, but he only continues to propose. Flustered, the being uses one of her tentacles to shake some sense into him, reminding him she's an Eldritch god, but he earnestly tells her that he's serious. Though bewildered, the being commends his bravery, before saying there are consequences if he messes with the Eldritch. He tells her not to underestimate him, as he had figured out she's a woman based on her titles alone, not to mention the fact he researched about her kind before he transmigrated, which only confuses the Eldritch god. Then, Lin becomes somber, leveling her with a sad look as he states that with her, he won't be lonely anymore, as she too is an immortal being. To summon her, he reveals he spent many years learning all the mysteries in the world, and he states he's willing to do whatever it takes to have a wife by his side eternally. The being becomes silent, but his words made her open the gates. She steps out, revealing a marvelous beauty as her clothes flutter around her as she descends. She commands Lin to love her for all eternity, and he replies it's no problem at all. Then her eyes widen before she shyly turns away, suddenly panicking as she realizes she just agreed to marry someone she just met on impulse. She glances at him before she becomes determined to just be straightforward with him. Now composed, she asks him if he has any requests now that they're married, and without hesitation, he replies he wants to have a child with her. As it's her fort as the Mother Goddess, Singing is unfazed, smiling as she asks him if they should get started, as after all, she loves to bear children. Senu continues to say if he plans to have kids, she can help him realize that goal immediately, which takes the immortal aback, as they're currently in a graveyard. However, she's unconcerned, replying that he only needs to tell her what kind of children he wants to have so they can pull it off. She then assures him with a smile that she'll be fast and gentle, which only confuses Lin that she's already talking about conceiving when they're yet to do the act. The Eldritch reveals as she is the Mother Goddess, she can conceive all progeny, thus she can give him the kids he wants. With her tentacles, she grasps the man who sighs, stating what she's saying is not the sort of baby-making that he has in mind, but rather what he wants is to make non-stop burning love with her and have lots of kids. Senu blushes hotly, before she screams in embarrassment as she turns away from him, accidentally squeezing him tight in the process. She covers her face, stammering as she tries to convey that that kind of intimacy is too much, but Lin is persistent, clutching a tentacle, while he urges her to try to imagine the inseparable intimacy between lovers. Intensely, he invites her to go all the way. Meanwhile, at the Brood Palace, all that Lin has said has been viewed by two people through a mirror. The red-headed woman named Lilith isn't pleased, and she wails in despair about why Sinyi had to get herself suddenly hitched. She's appalled that she's already talking about having intercourse with a man she just met, but her companion, whose name is Baru, suggests that perhaps the Mother Goddess has her motives for doing so, as the man is very powerful. However, the redhead isn't impressed, believing Lin is just a worthless old pervert. Baru has a hunch, saying as the Eldritch war that's persisted endlessly isn't over yet, the Lord of Reality Shrine might have what it takes to decide who wins, which makes Lilith question just how strong the man is. Baru reminds her that the Mother Goddess aspires to defeat the other Eldritch and conceive a son that will become the new creator, and Lilith pipes up, saying it's the reason why they serve Senu. The other demon continues to say that procreating with a non-Eldritch is her best bet to fulfill the grand cause, but the redhead still can't stand the thought of the two having that kind of relationship, and states she can't approve of the man at all. She swears that she'll verify for sure if Lin has what it takes to pair with the Mother Goddess. At the same moment, Sinyi is still freaking out about having intercourse while her new lover is left swaying in the air. She thinks she's really going to do the stuff that she's only ever read about when suddenly, she notices the portal between the Reality Shrine and the Brood Palace is still open, which makes her curse as it means Lilith and the others witness the conversation she just had with Lin. Shyly, she tells the man that they'll talk later as she needs to head back and explain what happened to her kinsfolk. When he volunteers to accompany her, she refuses, asking that he give her a moment. He reaches out to grasp one of her tentacles, telling her that she should return early, before kissing it, much to her shock. The sensation of his kiss makes her blush, and Lin, who's clueless, continues to fondle it, as he says he'll be lonely if she'll make him wait for too long. Hurriedly, she leaves, promising she'll be back before he knows it, and in an instant, she disappears. The immortal sighs, a dark expression appearing on his face, as he muses how his heart suffers more violently after approaching the Eldritch. It's as if the pain cursed to his heart is actively reminding him that unless all Eldritch are eliminated, transmigrators can never return home to Earth. He swears to himself he'll do whatever it takes to bring all those in his shrine back home. Later, the Almighty Mother Goddess returns to the Brood after 90 million years and convenes the Eldritch Roundtable Conference, where gods assemble as legislators and executives of the world order. The first to speak up is Rujin, the Gold Emperor, asking why they were called together. Then someone slams her hands on the table. It's Clara, the god of drowning death, who gets excited at the idea of an after-party, while Nea, the lord of monsters, only remains silent. Saman, the Black Lord, loudly muses that they must be there for something interesting. Atos, the true ancestor of the Titans, excitedly calls them comrades, while Ivy, the beast god of Labyrinth, only shakes in excitement. Meanwhile, the Mother Goddess is engrossed with her eating, so her primordial servant, Baru, calls for her attention. She answers that she indeed heard Rujin, revealing it's actually nothing major, as she tucks her hair, the gem of her engagement ring glinting in the light. To all the Eldritch gods' surprise, she announces she's going to marry a human being. Immediately, Saman smiles sinisterly, saying it's fascinating news, while Rujin, who's unimpressed, questions if Sinyu wants them to join the ceremony. As Atos is excitedly flailing, Clara translates for him, asking what's her intention for telling this news to them, who are all mutual enemies. Sinyu answers she's leaving the Brood to enter the world with her husband. When she states she wants this to be an opportunity to end the war between the Eldritch, Nea becomes curious. Meanwhile, back at the Reality Shrine, Lin broods as he lights up a match. Suddenly, he looks up, noticing a glowing figure before him. The faceless warrior greets him familiarly, though he mentions how he doesn't have a face. The warrior knows it's not his fault, as after all, he's just a vain illusion from the immortal's memories. He then questions if he really has been dead for so long as the other man doesn't remember his face anymore, and Lin reveals it's been almost 96 million years since he died, which surprises the faceless figure that he'd remember something so specific while forgetting his face. Suddenly, a woman speaks up, her eyes obscured, as she questions if Lin still remembers her, which he does, much to her delight. Afterward, the immortal reveals he's preparing to leave the shrine, and the faceless warrior questions if it's because he has a girl. Lin admits he's getting married to an Eldritch god, and before the countless figures of dead transmigrators that had been his friends, he apologizes. He states he has no way to bring them to his wedding before the extinction of the Eldritch. While back at the Brood, the Mother Goddess invites everyone to her wedding.